My son is 3 months old today, and I absolutely love him to pieces. He is happy, healthy, strong, and just the most amazing and fantastic thing on the face of this planet as far as I'm concerned. But there was a period in his life right towards the beginning that lasted for about 3 weeks where I was absolutely terrified as a parent. I felt like a failure. I was scared for him, and I thought I would share that story in this video in case it can be shared with others and be helpful to them. My son was about a week and a half old when he was labeled failure to thrive, and the term absolutely terrified me. Reason for it, the term immediately brought to mind pictures of World Vision campaigns. I thought that my son was on his way to becoming a little tiny skeleton, and the thought just broke my heart. With that term failure to thrive, I was having a really hard time getting clear answers about what that meant, why my son was being labeled that, and I kept having these weight and percentile charts waved at me, and I couldn't understand why. My son, to me, looked very healthy. He was the right color, right temperature, he had energy, good muscle strength, he was alert. All these different things said to me that he was doing well. He was just a little on the skinny side, and the people checking him out, the healthcare providers, would agree. They'd check him out, he looked fantastic, and it wasn't until they looked at these charts that everything became doom and gloom, and I was being told that there was something very, very, very wrong, and here were the things I needed to do about it. I've got a list here of some of the different tools that I was recommended to try or was told I should use. And so here we go. To help improve his weight gain and to deal with the failure to thrive, it was recommended that I start pumping. I had terms being given to me like you need to pump this many cc's or this many milliliters or this many ounces, and I just, in the state of mind that I was in, having recently had a baby and also recovering from a delivery that had some complications, I was having a really hard time taking in the numbers and doing the transition between just trying to translate the difference between milliliters and ounces. Also, nobody told me at the time that pumping is a skill, and so when I did start trying to make use of that tool, it actually just compounded the problem as far as my fears went, because I couldn't get anything at first, and that just reinforced for me that there was something wrong with me, that I was failing my son. It didn't really help, and on top of that, as far as pumping goes, increased pressure does not equal increased amounts of milk, but nobody told me that. So just sometimes increasing the amount of pressure that you're using just increases how much it really freaking hurts. So pumping was a tool that was available, but it wasn't really working out all that well for me to start off with. I was being recommended to use feeding tubes, feeding schedules. I was told to use fenugreek and blessed thistle, so two natural supplements that are galactagogues, things that tell your body to start making more milk. It was recommended to me that I start giving my baby formula, that I take prescription drugs that increase breast milk supply, that I eat oatmeal or nursing cookies, that I drink beer. It was recommended to me that I reevaluate my son's latch. Now, we were using the self-latching technique, and it was actually working out fantastic for us. We had nailed down a great latch within 8 days, and that was amazing. So I was being told, well, you know what, maybe that self-latch that I knew was working really well is not working as good as you think. You need to grab your boob, grab his head, ram those two things together, lock them into place. So I was being told to reevaluate and do the latch differently. I was told I should consider having his lip and tongue ties cut, either physically cut or lasered. And the problem with this was that the different healthcare professionals couldn't agree on whether or not he had a lip tie or a tongue tie or none or both. And the fact that somebody even told me that the tool they have for cutting tongue and lip ties, well, his tie was so small that the tool probably wasn't going to be able to cut it, so I'd have to go to somebody who had a laser. Well, okay, I was thinking maybe if your tool, it's so small that the tool can't even cut it, maybe it's not a problem. But I was being told that he had lip ties and tongue ties that were affecting his ability to eat, that would probably give him a speech impediment when he was older. I was recommended to look into accessing a breast milk bank in our city, and I was even recommended, how about you talk to another breastfeeding mother and have her feed your baby for you. So all of that all of that culminated in eventually being given a referral to go see a pediatrician, and during that visit, that's when everything just completely tipped. The weight of the information, the sense of being overwhelmed, just went right over the edge, because this pediatrician had my son weighed and measured and then dropped the line. Fortunately, his brain has been preserved, and now my World Vision pictures of my poor little skeleton son had images of, wait a minute, now his brain is at risk. My son is experiencing potential brain damage because I can't feed him properly. These were the messages and pictures that were coming up, and the pediatrician then handed me a prescription, and it was with the idea that I was supposed to engage in a very intense feeding regimen, and it involved a medical grade breast pump that I was supposed to use for 6 months. Now, I went home bawling. I was so tired. Again, I just had a baby recently. I was not running on very much sleep at all. It was really difficult to choose which breakfast cereal to eat in the mornings, and that's if I even remember to eat breakfast. It was really hard to make decisions with all this other information coming at me about how to feed my son, how to improve breastfeeding, and improve his weight gain. And so, to be honest, when I went home, there was a lot of crying. I needed to call some friends and family to get some of my thoughts out of my head, especially what that pediatrician had said about, fortunately, his brain's been preserved. And I'm really grateful for the friends and family that we have, because they were very supportive. They listened while I just sort of babbled and got my fears out. And they also shared their stories. And it turned out that there were a lot of families, a lot of couples that, the mom, she was trying to breastfeed and they were being told low supply, low weight gain, failure to thrive. And it was causing me to ask, well, wait a minute, if breastfeeding is a natural system, if mothers are built to feed their babies and to increase their supply as their baby gets bigger, why are so many mothers being told they have low supply and being told to do all these crazy things, these big long lists of tools? And so it was through those conversations that I was able to sort of come up for air and realize, okay, you know what? Some of this stuff, the reason it's hitting me so hard is because it feels wrong for our family. We have ideas, hopes for how we want to raise our son and how we want to feed him, and a bunch of these tools don't fit with that. And it also helped me to realize I actually felt like some of these things were just plain wrong. It didn't match with my understanding of how the human body works, especially when I was being told 6 months with a medical grade pump. I have no medical conditions. I've had no surgeries that would impact my breasts. So there is no good reason, that was so wildly outside the realm of reason. Why was somebody telling me to use a medical grade pump for 6 months? And so just knowing this either isn't a good fit or it just feels so wrong, we were able to make the decision as a family that we were going to go back to the basics. And I really appreciate one friend who summed up those basics of breastfeeding like this: just feed often, drain the breast. That's it. Feed often, drain the breast. And there's flexibility for how you interpret those basics. In our case, because there was so much pressure and we did feel like, okay, we need to get on this, we do need to turn his weight around. And because we were going in for so many check-ins and weigh-ins with healthcare professionals, what we ended up doing was just hunkering down for a weekend and focusing on, okay, we're going to feed him. I'm going to feed him. And there's going to be no more than 2 hours in between feedings. So when he finished one feeding, then I set a timer, and if he asked for food within 2 hours, then if he was hungry, I fed him again. But if 2 hours went by and he didn't ask for food, then at the end of those 2 hours, I would offer food. Now, 2 hours doesn't have to be the number that you run with. That happened to be the number that we chose. We just wanted to make sure, because he was a very sleepy baby, that we weren't letting 4, 5, 6 hours go by without him being fed. We really shortened the time periods in between feedings to make sure he was being fed often. And to drain the breast, I was just doing everything I could to keep him awake, alert, because he did want to snooze. And the thing that worked best for me to drain the breast was to actually just feed him on one side, try to keep him alert, and when he started dozing off or he looked disinterested or he started getting all wiggly, I would just switch him over to the other side, and we just kept doing that until both sides, there just wasn't any more to give at that time. Started the timer and off we went. And so we had another weigh-in that was 3 days after the last one, when we implemented that just basic approach. feed often, drain the breast, and at that next weigh-in we ended up finding out that he was now gaining weight at a rate of half an ounce per day. That was more weight that he had gained consistently in a shorter period of time than any other point leading up to then. So that was success. It meant that we were on the right track, and so we kept doing what we were doing. He was weighed again 3 days later, and it was confirmed that he was gaining at a rate of 1 ounce per day, and that was amazing because if he was going to continue on that track, that was exactly the kind of upward curve that we were looking for. What we had done had worked. We kept running with that more intense regimen, that 2-hour timer that I just kept running day and night. And after a couple of weeks, when it was very obvious he was healthy, all the other signs were still there, but now he was starting to get the little plump cheeks to go along with. I don't think my baby's ever going to be a fat, chubby baby, but he just had the little bit of extra padding to him, and it was really good to see, and we were able to relax things a little bit, so there's no more timers anymore. Really, we just sort of feed him when he wants to be fed. Some people agree with that, some people don't. I'm just letting you know what's worked for us. And I do keep an eye on the clock so that if some days he is just more sleepy than usual, then yeah, I'll wake him up. I'll give him a little nudge. I will offer him food. And it's just amazing to see at 3 months today how healthy he is, how beautiful he is. I love my baby boy, and I'm really glad to see that he's doing so well. So with all that in mind, just a couple of other things to share with you. I'm just looking at my notes here. In the end, so somebody told me I would need 6 months to fix this problem. We were able to fix the problem in 6 days. 6 days. If you are feeling overwhelmed, scared, if you've been told by a healthcare professional that you need this long, intense regimen to fix a low milk supply or a low weight problem with your baby, obviously healthcare providers are very valuable resources, and if your baby is showing any signs of being unhealthy, bad color, bad temperature, they're lethargic and poor muscle tone, they're showing that they're in more immediate distress, by all means, I'm not trying to override what a healthcare provider is saying when trying to assist a baby who is in immediate distress. Just one thing I'd really encourage you, ask good questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask what your other options are. And just if it does work for you to be able to simply focus on the basics, then chances are you're not going to need weeks or months to turn this around. Within days, you could actually start to see the improvement that you're looking for. So just it's incredible what the human body is capable of, and so there can be big changes in short periods of time. The other thing is that since establishing that weight gain curve and that increased or improved milk supply, my son still goes through growth spurts. He's a baby. That's exactly what he's supposed to do. And so there are days where I realize, oh buddy, you are hungrier than usual. You have sucked me dry. I've got nothing more for you right now. And so just realizing, okay, I can't keep up with him right now. Instead of going back to the list, well, it's time for me to pump or to give him formula or to do all these other crazy things. Instead, I now know all I need to do is just hold the fort for 20 or 30 minutes, go get a glass of water, make sure I'm hydrated, and then, okay, you know what, you gave me 20, 30 minutes to just keep working. The breasts are never actually fully empty because your body is constantly making milk, so I just need a little bit of extra time, and 20 or 30 minutes later, we go back at it again. And even if he just keeps draining me, and so it's a little bit of a frustrating night for him, it seems to happen more for us in the evenings. If he's frustrated and fussy because he's not getting enough food, guess what? All right, the way the body is designed, my body catches on. I've got a hungry baby who now wants more food, and it's only taken 2 or 3 days for my body to catch up, and I've been making the amount that he now needs. So I haven't had to go back to that list. I haven't had to make use of those tools. My body's been able to do what it needs to do to feed my baby, and so that's actually made breastfeeding really exciting, really enjoyable. It still has its challenges, but I can't tell you how much I am enjoying feeding my baby. I love that relationship with him, And so I would love to be able to contribute to that being preserved, supported, encouraged for as many other families as possible who that's what they're hoping for their baby. So in the end, with all this, ultimately, you as a parent are going to know what is a good fit or a bad fit for your hopes, for your family, for your baby. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to look at additional options when they're needed. And last thing is just that I found in general, life is usually really simple. And when things get complicated, it's because people made it more complicated. It wasn't life that was complicated. It was the people that just added things that weren't necessary. And so just if you've been told that you have a low breast milk supply, if you've been told that your baby has low weight gain, chances are there's actually a really simple solution. And I hope that you have the ability, the opportunity to make use of that, to go back to the basics, and as a result, have a lot more peace, have a lot more joy in your breastfeeding relationship with your baby. So with all of that, I hope this video is helpful. All the best. There's one more thing I'm going to do to finish off this video. My son is 3 months old today. He is healthy, strong, growing, and so I'm going to celebrate by destroying the prescription slip that I was given for 6 months with a medical grade breast pump. It reads, double electric breast pump times 6 months for poor maternal milk supply and inadequate weight gain in baby.